In today's show, the Blazers roll over the Hornets, Jusuf Nurkic dominates, and Damian Lillard is the greatest Blazer of all time. Well, Locked On Blazers, let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen every single day. Free on all platforms, 5 days a week, coming at you every single weekday. So make it a part of your daily routine and make it your first listen every day. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're going to talk about the Blazers breaking a losing streak and beating a bad Hornets team in Charlotte on a night they honored Damian Lillard as the franchise's all-time leading scorer. I want to talk about that game. I want to talk about Jusuf Nurkic, who was a monster in the second half. He was just fantastic after halftime, helped the Blazers change the tide. And I want to talk about my shifting opinion on the greatest Trailblazer of all time. It's Damian Lillard. It changed tonight. It changed tonight on the night the Blazers honored him as their franchise's all-time leading scorer, and it's really not about the points. It's not about the points anymore. I mean, it is. It's about the points. It's about everything. But for me, Dame is the greatest Blazer of all time. My opinion has changed. I want to talk about that in the second segment. But first, let's do what we do here. Fastest recap in the West. The Blazers beat the Charlotte Hornets 124-113. Portland improves to 11-2 when they score 115 points. This team can score. When they score, they win. When they don't score, they lose. The formula is pretty simple. In this one, they scored, but it was ugly early. They were down 34-30 after one. They had 8 first-quarter turnovers. Every flavor of turnover. Live ball, bad turnovers, step out of bounds, turnovers, get your pocket picked, turnover, run someone over in transition, turnover, every flavor of turnover. The Blazers were serving them up. The starters turned the ball over. They brought the bench in. The bench turned the ball over. Just a nightmare. And it didn't get better. They trailed by as many as 7 in the first quarter, but it swelled to as many as 14. Charlotte's up 14 on the road in Portland. On the road, up 14-point lead, and it's like, is this really going to happen? Blazers cut into it late in the at the end of the second quarter. They're down 67-61 at halftime, and why I'm laughing is because my uncle Matt, shout out to Uncle Matt, a sometimes listener of this podcast and an always Hornets fan, a lifelong North Carolinian and a long-suffering Hornets fan, sent me the following text message at halftime. At halftime, Matt says, Hornets will lose by more than 10 tonight. You nailed it, Matt. Hornets do lose by more than 10 because they get steamrolled in the third quarter. They go down. They're down 101-95 from up 6 to down 101-95 in the third quarter. Blazers led by as many as 13 in the third, and Portland steamrolled them 40 points in the third quarter. Outscored Charlotte 40-28. Jusuf Nurkic led the way with 12 points, 6 boards, and 4 assists in the third quarter. He was 4-4 from the field, 2 of 2 from the three-point line, and 2 of 2 from the free throw line. He was fantastic. The Blazers, as a team, in the third quarter, shot 15 of 23 from the field, 7 of 13 from the three-point line. As a team, that's 8 of 10 inside the arc. If you're scoring at home, 80% of their two-pointers. They got out and ran. They got enough stops to make it happen. They stopped turning the ball over at all costs, which helped their transition defense. And their offense can be really good, and the Hornets are not a good defensive team at all in any way, shape, or form, and the Blazers made them look like it. They take a 6-point lead in the third and never look back, winning 124-113 in a game that Charlotte was not out of it, but was never in it down the stretch, never really threatened. That's your fastest recap in the West. Jeremy Grant led the way with 32 points. He had 10 in the fourth quarter to kind of put the game away for real. He had 13 at halftime. He was pacing the Blazers throughout. He finished with 32 points and 10 boards. Jusuf Nurkic, 28 points, 15 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Wow, Nurk. We're going to talk about him a bunch to close the show. He was so good. Anthony Simons had 15 in the first half, finished with 18. Damian Lillard did not shoot well. 17 points on 5 of 18 shooting, 1 of 10 from 3. This was a night where they were honoring Dame, and it looked like it was gonna get away from him in that second quarter. They found it in the third. Winning a game when Dame doesn't play well is always a good sign for this Blazers team. And Dame didn't play well. He finished with 17 points, 9 assists, but 1 of 10, 5 of 18. 13 missed shots and 17 points is a tough night. Josh Hart had a very Josh Hart night. 11 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists to go, and 1 steal in 38 minutes. Starters played too many minutes. We'll talk about that to close the show, but it was something that Chauncey did intentionally to kind of right the ship for this team. On the other side, LaMelo Ball, 27 points. PJ Washington had 22. Terry Rozier, 7 points on 2 of 17 shooting. He was bad. I think the big takeaway from this game was there's two things. We'll talk about both of them to close the show. But quickly here, you win a game when Dame doesn't play well. That is great news for the Blazers. Absolutely great news. And you score a bunch when Dame doesn't play well. That's great news. When you get 28 from Nurk and 32 from Jeremy Grant, you are reminded that this team has some real weapons. 15 in the first half to stay with it, while Damian Lillard was 1 of 8 in the first half, and has 15. Jeremy Grant has 13. Like, you just having other guys who can score is a big deal. And getting the night that they had and the focus that they had from Nurk on a night like this was special. And it was a night where Chauncey Billups leaned into his starters, leaned into his core guys and said, we really need a win. Go win it for us. I want to talk about that in the third segment, but after the game, Damian Lillard was honored. Lamar Hurd did a wonderful job as MC of the moment or the event. They kind of turned the lights down. Everybody stayed in the arena, and they had, throughout the game, they had been playing little tributes to Dame, and then they had a big sort of ceremony for him. Gave him a little trophy, and Lamar talked about him. It was really nice, and it solidified for me that Damian Lillard is the greatest trailblazer of all time. I want to talk about that moment. I want to talk about the night in general, and I want to talk about why my opinion has changed, and that's what we'll do in the second segment. But first, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy. How Prize Picks works is you pick between 2 and 6 players. You fill out an entry or a ballot. I call it a ballot. They call it an entry. But you fill out an entry and you're just picking over, under on the projections they set. So I play basketball and I play on the app. You can also go to prizepicks.com. But for me, I'm doing NBA because I know NBA and I'm doing the app. And you can pick between points and rebounds and assists, and you're just picking over or under the projection line set by Prize Picks. It's just you versus Prize Picks. No fields, no experts, no sharks, just you versus the projection lines. If you get it right, you can win up to 25 times your money. But you don't have to get them all right to win. You can say, if you make 4 entries, you can say, I want to get 3 out of 4 right. Or if 5, you can say, I want to get 4 out of 5 right. You can pick your odds, pick your wager, win some money, and then once you do, you get safe and fast withdrawals on Prize Picks. Plus, right now, for first-time users, they will match your first deposit up to $100. 100% deposit match. That means you put in $100, give you $100. You put in $50, they give you $50 when you use the promo code LOCKEDON at sign-up. So go to prizepicks.com or download the app at your mobile app store and use that promo code LOCKEDON when you are signing up and get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. That's Prize Picks Daily Fantasy made easy. All right. Let's talk about Damian Lillard, the greatest trailblazer of all time. Tonight was a night where the Blazers did just a wonderful job honoring Damian Lillard. It is a true bummer that the Blazers really stepped on the rake so many times last week and lost a game when Dame became the Blazers' all-time leading scorer, lost the following game after he'd become the Blazers' all-time leading scorer in OKC, and then kind of got handled by a Denver team that's just better than them on Friday. It didn't make this leading up to this moment where they had announced, hey, in a press release, we're going to honor Dame after this game. It didn't make this moment feel earned. I think is the right word. It didn't make it feel earned. It made it feel obligatory and all these things, and like, hey, it didn't happen at home, and if it had happened at home, it would have been this really special night. But because it didn't, we kind of got to shoehorn it in here and all these things. And then they were struggling against the Hornets, and it was like, are they going to really do this? In fact, on the broadcast, they were talking about how there was like a palpable tension with the team about wanting to like show out for Dame's night. And it was like, Jeremy Grant, can you just dunk a bunch? And Jeremy Grant just did a bunch of dunking and kind of saved the Blazers bacon. And Jusuf Nurkic had such a monster second half that it made it happen. But throughout the game, there were sprinkled in little video clips that the Blazers have also shared on social media. So if you follow them on the social media platforms, I'm sure you've seen them, but they also played them in the arena throughout the game. And so there was like former teammates like Nicholas Batum and LaMarcus Aldridge, and a really funny story from Evan Turner. There were, coaches like Greg Popovich and former Blazers coach Terry Stotts. And when Terry got on there, he raised Terry's incredible. He raised a Dairy Queen Damian Lillard glass, classic collectible redone for the modern era. Dairy Queen Damian Lillard glass of Dame, and called him the greatest Blazer of all time. And that got me thinking, if Terry Stotts thinks it, sure. Terry also hilariously said, I was proud to be there for over 90% of your points. Knowing Terry the way I do in the time I've been around him, I bet he did the math. It made me think, if Terry Stotts believes this, someone who's been around the game for as long as he has and is a historian of the game, someone who's convinced me strongly that Sean Marion deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Shout out to Terry Stotts. Shout out to Sean Marion, should be in the Hall of Fame. Get the Matrix in there. But if someone who's been around the game as much as Terry thinks Dame is the greatest Blazer of all time, and Terry's a lifer, right? He's been in the league for 35 years, or was in the league for 35 years before the stretch when he's been out of it. Maybe I need to reconsider my opinion. But I was a young child thousands of miles away. Shout out to my Uncle Matt, and lifelong North Carolinian, who's also living in North Carolina, this guy. And I'm 35 years old. I just wasn't old enough to appreciate Clyde at the distance I was. The first NBA basketball team I truly liked, the 1994-1995 Houston Rockets, the NBA champions, with Robert Horry and Mario Elie and Sam Cassell and Hakeem Olajuwon, and acquired at the trade deadline Clyde Drexler. I don't have a childhood affinity for Blazers glide. I don't even really remember Michael Jordan with hair. I am not old enough to truly speak on this level of greatness the way that I think people who were around, or even people who are my age but just like grew up in the area and were just immersed in it a little closer in the way that you could be in the early 90s. That wasn't just newspaper, box scores in newspaper. This game ended too late. Check again tomorrow. I don't have that feel for Clyde. I just don't. And I want to be honest about it here. But I have, I'm someone who appreciates the history of the game. I like to be, be reverent and respectful of the folks that came before and paved the way, because Clyde Drexler is a baller. And I've watched enough of the old school games when I was rewatching games in the pandemic to know how good Clyde was. I know he dribbled with his head down. I know he had a million finishes around the rim, and I know he was a much better passer than he gets credit for. Dude could hoop. Good defender too. An all-time great basketball player. And my opinion, up until tonight, Monday, December 26th, as I'm recording this, was that Clyde Drexler is the greatest trailblazer of all time right now, but that when it's all said and done and Dame retires in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it is, that he'll be the greatest Blazer of all time, and there really won't be much debate because he'll have every single record and he'll have been a Blazer for 20 years and all of those things, right? Like it won't be, we won't talk about it because it will be self-evident. And I believe that. But then as the LaMarcus Aldridge video played, and the Evan Turner video played, and the Nick Batum video played, and the Will Barton video played, and all the former Blazers played, and you didn't see Clyde Drexler get on a little cell phone video and say, "Congrats, Dame. I'm glad it was you. Go Blazers," or whatever. 6 seconds on a video. We are in the 21st century. All of us carry computers in our pocket with high-definition cameras. It's very easy to do this. Some of my colleagues shoot their video podcasts on a dang phone. It can be done. The fact that Clyde Drexler is absentee, completely absentee, means he can't be the greatest Blazer of all time. He could be the best player the Blazers have had, the best talent to wear a Blazers uniform, but he cannot be the greatest Blazer of all time because the soft stuff matters. Being here matters. Giving even a moment of consideration to the franchise over the last 30 years matters. It matters. You cannot be the greatest Blazer of all time if you are absentee. My opinion has changed. Thanks to the Nick Batums, the Evan Turners, the Terry Stottses, the Greg Popoviches, and everybody else. The Blazers also had one on social media with like a bunch of the current very good basketball players, Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum. I don't think Giannis did it, but like it's Steph Curry congratulating him on what it means to be, the franchise's all-time leading scorer. It's a big thing that the Blazers made real efforts to get people to give Dame a little video congratulations, and the living legend that he passed just didn't show up. You know what they did for the Clyde Drexler thing is they played like a cool highlight video in the arena, played some kind of somber, cool music and played some slow motion Clyde highlights. It was tight. Clyde is a really, really fun basketball player, but he wasn't there. So why Damian Lillard is the greatest Blazer of all time, why he's the greatest to ever do it in the uniform, is because of the numbers, right? He scored all those points. It was Dame wore a mic tonight. There's a really funny moment where he was going to throw a lob to Drew Eubanks on the fast break, but Eubanks, even when the ball was coming to him, was like, "Is this for real? A lob pass to me from Damian Lillard?" And it was a super awkward exchange, and they caught them on the bench during at a mic'd up segment they played on the Blazers broadcast, and Dame was like, "I'm going to give it to you in that situation." He's like, and trust me, if there's one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go score. Like, I can get my points. So in those situations, I'm going to get them for you. And Drew Eubanks said something to the effect of, "Yeah, you got 18,000 and counting." It's like, yeah, he has 18,000 points. He's fine. He doesn't need two of them. The points matter. The 18,041 plus matter. He's going to set a record that nobody's going to touch for a long time, and probably ever, the way the league works now. Dame's going to be the greatest scorer in franchise history. But why Dame is the greatest is because being the greatest and your admiration for him means something. Your appreciation of Damian Lillard means something to Damian Lillard. Your affection for him as the icon, as the face of the franchise means something to Dame. It means something to him. It is meaningful for him to be that person for you. And that's what the greatest Blazer of all time is. As the numbers get closer, and he's been on more All-NBA teams, and he's going to be a 7-time All-Star this year. Clyde made 8 in a Blazers uniform. As the numbers get closer, and obviously Clyde's going to have the team success thing until Dame passes him or doesn't, but I think it's safe to bet that Clyde will have the team success, the 2 trips to the finals, all that. But as the numbers get closer, the soft stuff matters, and I've changed my tune. Before I was wait and see, and I knew that it would change by 2025. I'm here. Before we hit 2023 on Monday, December 26th at about 11 p.m. Portland time, Damian Lillard is the greatest Blazer of all time. I am no longer debating it. To close the show, I want to talk about the big third quarter. I want to talk about Jusuf Nurkic, and I want to talk about a thing Chauncey Billups did tonight with the lineups that I think is meaningful because it shows that Billups is accepting the reality of the Blazers as they stand currently and having to do some coaching because of it. That's what we'll talk about to close the show. But before we do that, I want to tell you about BetOnline. It's just the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action. Whatever that sports action might be, you're going to find out on BetOnline. NBA games, NHL games, MLB futures. You're going to find combat sports. You're going to find golf. You're going to find tennis. You're going to find whatever you're looking for. As soccer heats back up around the globe after the World Cup break, you're going to get that as well. So why not go check it out? Take advantage. Have some fun. Maybe try to win a little money. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. This game changed in the third quarter when the Blazers blew it open, outscored Charlotte 40-28, and that was keyed by an aggressive, in control, and straight up highly effective Jusuf Nurkic. He was fantastic in the third quarter. Fantastic. He had 12 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, didn't miss a shot, made 2 threes, added 2 more threes late in the game. 3 more threes late in the game, finished 5 of 6 from deep, a career high 5 made threes, including his first 5. When he hit his final one from the corner, he gave a big old smile. 5 of 7 from deep. Hit his first 5 though, gave a big old smile like, yeah. When he hit his third one, he did a Jordan shrug. My man was killing it, and he was killing it by being aggressive, doing big guy stuff, right? Like being big. Being bigger than Mason Plumlee, beasting him. When they put Mark Williams in there, the rookie who played his first like significant minutes tonight, or a real significant minutes, he played his 4th game ever with the Hornets. Jusuf Nurkic bullied him. He said, "Okay, young fella, you are not big enough. I'm 7 foot 300 pounds, and I'm going to play like it." You mix that in with the 3-point shooting. Nurk can be a real factor. Is Nurk going to make 5 threes every night? No, he is not. No, he's not. It's silly to consider it like that, right? Like it doesn't have to be, oh, Nurk, why doesn't Nurk become a long range bomber? Why doesn't Nurk become a stretch 5? Why doesn't he do this and that? I think it could be as simple as this. On Friday night, Jusuf Nurkic plays against Nikola Jokic. 2-time MVP, dude is about to average a triple-double in the league. He keeps doing stuff that only Wilt Chamberlain has ever done. He's an all-time great player. He's a monster. He's incredibly hard to guard. And Jusuf Nurkic fouls out in 22 minutes trying to deal with him. If the Blazers are going to be good, Jusuf Nurkic needs to play better than that against Nikola Jokic and the like, right? Like if the Blazers are going to be truly competitive, Nurk needs to play 28 minutes and not get in foul trouble, not foul out of the game with 8 minutes left, all those things. But getting dominated by Jokic is not an indictment of Nurk. The indictment of Nurk is when he doesn't dominate a Mason Plumlee of the world. To me, Jusuf Nurkic is like a right at league average, slightly above average NBA center. When the elite centers have their way with him, when it is easy for the Nikola Jokic's and Joel Embiid's and even Bam Adebayo's against Nurk and Anthony Davis's against Nurk, it's like, yeah, that stinks. He's not at that level. When he is not dominant against the Alperen Şengün's and the Mason Plumlees, and the Jalen Durans or Isaiah Stewart's, whoever you want to call the center in Detroit, like when he's not dominant against those guys, when he struggled, when he first came back last week after missing a couple games with injury and came back against OKC and he couldn't dominate OKC, that was a much bigger indictment of Nurk than struggling against the best of the best. For me, the Jusuf Nurkic I want to see is that when Jusuf Nurkic has an advantage, he scores 21 points and grabs 10 boards in the second half against the Hornets. The Blazers were wayward in the first half. They were not playing much defense. They were turning the ball over. They were giving out easy transition opportunities. And Jusuf Nurkic, the very same, was the guy who calmed them down, got some easy buckets, got the rhythm going by scoring easy inside, made it an important, a 3-pointer to keep the run going. He was the guy that calmed the waters. Jeremy Grant brought him home. He was really good in the first half and really good in the fourth quarter, but Jusuf Nurkic in that third quarter righted the ship, got things back, got him out of the choppy water, got it into the flat water so they could cruise, so they could just put the sails up and get home. They needed to get home and get a win. For me, the Jusuf Nurkic I want to see is when you are playing guys that you're better than or have a physical advantage against, go to it. Instead of, for me, I think a lot of the conversation around Nurk moves the goalposts. It's like, oh, he had a good game, but blah, blah, blah. I don't want to move the goalposts. I want to squarely put them right here. Nurk against guys, he's against the lower class of centers in the league, go dominate. That's what you want to see. Go dominate. And he doesn't need a million post touches to dominate. I think he can run pick and rolls and get touches at the elbow and mix in 3-4 post ups and be okay. Now that his 3-point shot is reliable, I got to chill. I still, when I see him shoot threes, I'm like, okay, he makes 5 threes in a game. That's on me. I got it. I'm the one who needs to shut up. So I'm going to shut up. I will never comment on a Nurk 3 again, unless it's outrageous. I do reserve the right to comment on outrageous threes because I'll comment on anyone's outrageous 3, but in matchups that he just has a physical advantage in, go get it. And that's what Nurk did. Props to him. He was the guy who got the Blazers going, steadied them, and played wonderfully because Damian Lillard was having a bad shooting night. Anthony Simons had a quiet second half. It was Nurk and Jeremy Grant and some Josh Hart hustle plays, and that's what keyed them. And it was also some good coaching by Chauncey Billups. Justice Winslow missed this game, and prior to the game at about 5 p.m., a couple hours before tip-off, the Blazers announced that Justice Winslow has a pretty bad ankle sprain and is going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Like it looked bad when he landed on Kenrick Williams' leg, the way he left the court. He was not really putting weight on it. Looked bad. Whenever a guy leaves quickly, heads to the back, immediately ruled out. It's like, I'm not a doctor, I'm a podcaster, but it didn't seem good. He's now going to be out for at least 2 weeks, which means the Blazers are super shorthanded on like dudes who could defend off the bench who he thought it was going to be. We haven't seen GP yet, but he might be back Friday. Nazir Little's out for an extended period. Now you're missing Justice Winslow for a couple weeks. That's like all of your good bench wing defenders. That's all the guys who you thought were going to be good plus defenders off the bench to kind of change this team. Instead, you are playing shorthanded. And the last against Denver, and in the first half against Charlotte, Chauncey Billups went to an Anthony Simons plus bench lineup that was a mess, and it's untenable. There's just not enough talent on the floor. It's Anthony Simons, Keon Johnson, Shaedon Sharpe, Trendon Watford, and Drew Eubanks. It's Ant plus the bench, and it's really Ant plus the deep bench, right? Like it's not Ant plus Gary Payton and Nazir Little, right? Borderline starters. It's Ant and the deep bench, and they cannot get enough stops to be competitive, and they're so reliant on Anthony Simons to score to have any chance on offense. I like Keon Johnson. I think he's a good basketball player. He's not quite ready to be consistently very good, and with a team that has playoff aspirations. Drew Eubanks is a fun basketball player with good touch around the rim. He doesn't have a lot of individual offense. Shaedon Sharpe has looked like a teenager recently, and Trendon Watford has had a couple kind of stinkers in a row. That lineup wasn't going to work. It's not enough talent, not enough scoring, not enough defense on the court. So Chauncey Billups scrapped it. Shaedon Sharpe did not play in the second half. And what Billups did was he took Grant and Nurk out a little earlier than their typical subs and brought in Trendon Watford and Drew Eubanks to play with the starters. And then to open the fourth quarter, it was Grant and Nurk on the court as opposed to that all bench lineup, which had played the even quarters to begin the even quarters of each of the last three halves. That lineup worked. It was better. It helped them stay afloat. Jeremy Grant was playing really well. Jusuf Nurkic was playing really well. It was a good decision that if you're a long-time listener to the show, the only thing I think coaches do when the game starts is decide who plays and when. This is a crucial who plays and when moment. It was a substitution that helped a lineup that absolutely wasn't working. Scrap that lineup, keep better players on the floor and go get it. You might have to keep doing that depending on the availability of Gary Payton. And when assuming he comes back Friday, I think there's a pretty good chance he comes back at Golden State based on the reporting from Chris Haynes of Bleacher Report. But if he doesn't, because who knows with Payton at this point, literally who knows, if he's not there, like if he's not ready, you're going to have this group for the foreseeable future for until you don't, right? A handful more games. The rest of the injured guys aren't going to come back. So you're going to have to do something like this. However, the minutes count tonight. Josh Hart, 38. Jeremy Grant, 36 plus. Jusuf Nurkic, 36. Anthony Simons, 38.5. Damian Lillard, 38. That's untenable. And to have to play all of your dudes 36 to 38 minutes against the Hornets isn't going to work. Trendon Watford played 15 off the bench. Keon played 18. I thought he was fine. Drew Eubanks had 12, and Shaedon Sharpe played one shift, 7 minutes, and then he played the last 30 seconds of the game. 6.5 minutes, last 30 seconds of the game. This worked tonight, and it is a good solution because of what you needed to do. But at some point, Billups is going to have to shake up the rotation even more to keep two of Grant, Nurk, and Dame on the court at all times. I think there was part of me that thought that Josh Hart was going to get some minutes with the second unit with some on-ball opportunities. We haven't seen that. And now with Justice Winslow out, I think now is the time to experiment a little bit with that. you would have to bring Shaedon Sharpe in pretty early to get to that, or bring Keon in pretty early to get to that. It's maybe not perfect, like just with who you have available wise, but avoiding that Ant plus bench lineup in creative ways, you got to do it, and trying to shave 3-4 minutes off everybody's time. What I assumed was Nurk was going to play the first little bit of the fourth quarter, and then they're going to bring Drew Eubanks back. That's a way you could steal 3 minutes for Nurk, like have Nurk play from 12 to 9, sit from 9 to 6, and come back and close the game. They didn't do that because I think Nurk was humming, and they just wanted to make sure that they won, and Chauncey Billups, he knows this team needed a win. But I think there's ways to tweak the rotation. I think this was a really good start, but they got to do that more moving forward. And if you get monster nights from Nurk, it makes everything easier. Blazers got a long time off. They do not play again until Friday in San Francisco. So time to heal up, time to get some practice in, time to probably enjoy the longest downtime you'll have until the All-Star break, until February. So this is the Blazers enter a softer stretch of their schedule. They really needed a win. They got that win, and now it's a chance for them to make sure that they stay up in that 6, 7, 8, even higher spot in the crowded Western Conference, because this is the easiest part of their schedule. We will talk about that schedule in an upcoming episode. Look ahead, talk about what January is going to bring, and all of that into 2023. We got more shows later this week. We're going to talk Dameless minutes, how the Blazers have performed without Damian Lillard on the court, a meaningful stat I've tracked for years. We're bringing it back later this week. I got an interview I'm trying to nail down. It's going to be a whole bunch of fun. Come join me. Tell your friends. Make it your first listen every single day. Tell your friends to do the same. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.